A creature grew in our vineyard. And it grew hungry. I was born a burden. My parents said it jokingly, but I could tell it always lingered in their minds. Even as an infant, I struggled with bronchiolitis, hypersensitive skin, and infections. My mother used to say it felt like God had gotten tired of looking out for me and handed it all over to them. He couldn't be bothered anymore, she'd half joke. I was a sickly child in a healthy family. I had 3 older brothers and 2 younger sisters. And while one illness would fade, another would take its place. Bronchiolitis gave way to asthma. Infections to allergies. Sensitivity to eczema. Add in migraines, bad eyesight, and car sickness, and you had 8-year-old me. We lived near a vineyard, east of Toulouse, past Gaillac and Albi, where colorful hills stretched through the French countryside. Most people just think champagne when they hear French wine, but my father liked to say that before we had a country, we had wine. Although we didn't live on the vineyard itself, my family owned it. My father had worked those lands since he was a boy, and my brothers and I were expected to follow. My sisters too, but in different ways. And it wasn't the charming movie version with berets and baguettes, it was real work, chemicals, heavy machinery, paperwork, inspections. Traditions had to evolve to meet modern markets. When I say hard work, I mean dragging heavy equipment, loading trucks, filling out endless forms, not strolling through vines with a basket. I wanted to help, but my body wouldn't let me. I couldn't run far. I couldn't lift much. I got headaches from staring at screens. Even doing laundry required special care, different detergent, different shampoo, special zippers because of my nickel allergy. And as difficult as all that was, it was my allergy to fur that truly set me apart. All my siblings wanted was a pet. But my allergies were so severe that even being near someone who had a dog could trigger a reaction. Sometimes I had to wait in the car while they shopped, just to stay safe. I had medication, but it made me tired and nauseous, not ideal for long trips. I remember once at dinner, I had a reaction to something in the soup. My parents debated if it was the tomatoes or the spring onions. Maurice, my older brother, couldn't hide his frustration anymore. Every day, he yelled. Every day there's something new. Why do we even bother keeping him around? My mother scolded him, but it didn't change anything. Maurice was furious. We could have so much more without you, he said. We could go anywhere, do anything. Now we're all stuck with you. He stormed upstairs, yelling all the way. I'd rather have a dog than you as my brother. And the worst part? He wasn't completely wrong. He just said the quiet part out loud. That night, I went out into the woods. I had taken one of my allergy pills so I wouldn't get sick from the trees, but I could already feel my legs dragging from the side effects. My pockets were stuffed with my usual small pharmacy, the standard kit for leaving the house. I wanted to find Maurice a dog. It was a foolish idea, but I really wanted him to like me. Of course, there weren't many stray dogs wandering the French countryside, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was upset, and I didn't want to be a burden anymore. I wandered through those woods for hours, calling out for something to find me. Something I could bring back. I just wanted to do something good. It got too dark to keep going, so I decided to head back. I felt disheartened. I'd made a fool of myself, again. Then I heard a splash. There were puddles in the woods from the afternoon rain, and something was splashing around. Something small. Maybe a frog. I knelt down, letting the mud soak into my freshly cleaned jeans. Sorry, Mom. I felt around and touched something poking against my finger. I recoiled. Sorry, I said. I don't want to hurt you. I reached out again, more carefully this time. Something about the size of my thumb wriggled in the mud, not a frog, but something equally slimy. I flattened my hand, inviting it to climb up. What are you? I asked. You're not a frog. It crawled into my hand and lay still. I lifted it up to my face, trying to see what it was. Something black, with a ridge along its spine. "You want to come home with me?" I asked. "Or you can stay, if you want." I put my hand down again, but it didn't leave. I couldn't help but smile. I think it was the first time something willingly chose to stay with me. But it was late, and my parents were out searching for me. I hurried into one of the storerooms, grabbed a jar, filled it with some rainwater, and carefully placed my new friend inside. I left the jar open in case it wanted to leave, apologizing softly, and promised I'd be back in the morning. I hid it near a pile of raked leaves at the far side of the house. My parents were furious, but mostly worried. Maurice got a harsh talking to, which didn't make things any better. Now he was in trouble because of me too. I barely slept that night, wondering what exactly was in that jar. Maybe it really was a frog. A really cool, black, punk rock kind of frog. The next morning, I rushed outside to check. I picked up the jar and noticed how the little creature had curled up at the bottom, trying to stay submerged. I hadn't filled it enough. Was it some kind of fish? Strange. I stood there in my flip-flops and pajama bottoms, chilled by the morning fog, and filled the jar properly with water from a garden hose. Holding it up to the light, I could finally see, about the length of a middle finger, blacker than coal. I could make out tiny spikes along its spine, a head like a trout, and a body like a snake. It even had gills, with long tendrils waving from its sides. As soon as the jar was filled, it came alive, twirling and spinning through the water like a dance. Then it stopped and looked straight at me with dark, expressionless eyes. "I'll call you Milou," I smiled. "And we're gonna be best friends." Can you tell I was a Tintin kind of kid? I decided to keep Milou hidden from my siblings. Maurice was still a bit upset after getting yelled at, and I figured it was safer not to show him anything he could use against me. I'd never had a pet, and chances were, I never would. So Milou would stay my secret. I fed him little bits and pieces. Grapes from the vineyard. Ants. Flies. Scraps I could sneak from dinner. He took his time with it but seemed happy. I even dropped in tiny plastic soldiers and rocks. In my mind, Milou was a sea monster, towering over the little soldier guys, my very own kraken. After a few days, I noticed a strange smell coming from the jar, so I decided to clean it. I waited until no one was home, grabbed a fresh jar, and hurried into the kitchen. My heart pounded as I opened the jar, and instantly, a sharp burn hit my nose. I was having an allergic reaction to something. I quickly moved Milou to the new jar and poured the old water down the drain. Then I rushed outside, almost dropping him, and had to sit down to catch my breath, wheezing and apologizing between coughs. "I'm sorry," I cried. "I don't know what's wrong." I looked down at Milou. He was pressed against the glass, staring at me with those dark, unblinking eyes. Even without a single muscle to show emotion, I could tell, he was worried. There was something in that old water that set off my allergies, but others seemed to find it pleasant. I tried running the tap to wash the smell away, but it lingered. When my mom got home, I panicked, but instead of noticing anything strange, she smiled. "Did someone pick flowers?" she asked. "It smells wonderful." As days turned into weeks, I realized Milou changed his water somehow. Something in it triggered my allergies, but smelled sweet to everyone else. If I got it on my skin, it caused terrible rashes, but to others, it was something beautiful. One afternoon, while I was cleaning Milou's jar, my dad suddenly burst through the front door. I bolted out the back, leaving the dirty jar behind on the counter. From the kitchen window, I watched Dad pick it up. He turned it over, sniffed it, and, to my horror, tasted it with the tip of his tongue. Then he drank it all in 6 big gulps. Milou grew. His gills developed long tendrils. His jaw pushed out into a slight underbite. His scales shimmered faintly. He needed more space, so I tried moving him to a bigger pot, but he didn't like it. Milou wanted something transparent, something he could see through. He liked watching. Floating. Just observing. In the garage, we had an old fermentation jar my grandfather once used for making preserves. It was perfect, larger than my head and made entirely of glass, with a tap to drain water easily. I thought it would be enough. I placed Milou in a hidden corner of one of the sheds. But he didn't like it. He tapped his head against the glass, pointing me back toward the outdoors. "I don't know where to put you," I said. "I just want to keep you safe." He tapped his head against the glass again. He was right, I couldn't keep him locked away in the dark. There's a hill overlooking the property, right by the forest's edge. The ground there was soft and covered in moss. I found a spot near a tree and dug a hole. I placed Milou's jar inside, leaving part of it above ground, like a little window. I covered the rest with leaves and moss and sat down beside him. No more tapping, he was happy. "I'll try to get you a cricket tomorrow," I said. "And maybe some other stuff." Milou spun in the water. Dark eyes watched me from the jar. "Do you need anything?" I asked. He tapped the glass. It felt more deliberate this time. "Do you really understand me?" Tap. I leaned in close, face to face with him. He didn't blink, just floated steadily, watching. "Do you know you're Milou?" Tap. "Do you like me?" I asked. He paused, tilted his head side to side, studying me. My heart sank a little. Then, tap. Clear as day. We were friends. A couple of days later, I went back to change his water. It started fine, but I spilled a full jar of wastewater all over myself. I quickly returned Milou to safety and sprinted back to the house to change before my allergies flared up. I ran through the kitchen. Dad was sitting with my sisters, helping with homework. As I passed by, he called out and followed me to the washroom. "What's that smell?" he asked. "Where've you been?" "Out," I said. "In the forest." "Not far." He picked up my stained pants from the laundry basket. To me, it smelled like trouble. To him, something different. "Is that wildflowers?" he asked. "Some kind of melon." I didn't answer. I just washed my hands, feeling a rash forming. Dad leaned down, looking me right in the eyes. "Did you make that lemonade before?" he asked. "The one in the jar on the counter?" "It's just water," I said. "Everything is water," he smiled. "Even wine." "But did you make it?" "Sort of." He smiled wider and gave me a pat on the shoulder. I think that was the first time I truly saw him proud of me. "You should make more," he said. It was fantastic. I visited Milou every day, chatting about everything and nothing. I told him about Dad's compliment, and Milou seemed happy. Still, I stayed cautious, I didn't want anyone asking questions. The next time I cleaned the jar, I saved the water in bottles and added wildflowers, making it look like something homemade. I wanted to make Dad proud. I'd seen my parents craft everything in that kitchen, and now it was my turn. I cleaned the bottles, added honey and fennel, and even made my own label. I called it Milou, so if I ever slipped up and said the name, no one would think twice. That night, as we gathered around the dinner table, I passed out bottles of Milou I had chilled during the day. Everyone got one. They weren't sure what to expect, but when they opened the bottles, the light fizz made them curious. After that first sip, their frowns melted away. For the first time, smiles spread across the table. Real smiles, and they were smiling at me. They loved it. They loved me. All summer and well into autumn, I kept up my secret routine. Milou had grown big enough to eat an entire meatball for dinner. He was longer than my foot but still had plenty of space in the jar. I fed him, talked to him, cleaned his water, and gave him little things to play with. But he was getting tired of toys and rocks, he wanted something new. He'd tell me with little taps on the glass. I started cutting out pictures from old newspapers, licking the backs and sticking them to the jar. Milou loved them. Especially pictures of people. He always lingered a little longer when they were smiling. I kept making bottles of Milou about once a week. I told my family it was my secret recipe. Dad would bring home honey, fennel, sometimes cherries or other fruit for me to use. We'd spend time experimenting, and even though to me it all smelled like burning acid, being useful made my heart swell with pride. I told them I couldn't drink it myself, that it burned my throat, and they didn't even question it. They loved it. Even Maurice. This continued for an entire year. I had the best birthday of my life, a real celebration, not just a polite one. People asked for my opinion. Dad bragged about my drink to neighbors on New Year's Eve. I wasn't just the sick boy anymore. I was part of the family business. But not everything was perfect. Maurice spent hours in the fields or kitchen, trying to replicate my recipe. He couldn't, and it drove him mad. He made it clear he'd make something better. He wasn't going to be beaten by someone who could get sick from fabric softener. Meanwhile, Dad was thinking bigger. Come spring, we made our first bottle of wine using Milou's water for dilution. Normally, mineral water doesn't change the taste, but Dad thought this would give it a colorful musky tone. I didn't know what that meant back then. Mineral water might not change the taste, he said, holding up a bottle with a grin, but with this, it will feel like a mother's kiss. I remember the day we finished it. Dad poured a small glass and let it sit. We waited quietly at the kitchen table. He smelled it, swirled it, observed the color. And when he finally tasted it, his eyes went wide. He smiled at me like he'd just won the lottery. He swept me up onto his shoulder and ran outside, waving the bottle. He called out for Mom to taste the sample and sprinted toward the field workers. 2 men were taking a break. Dad handed them the bottle. "Tell me," he said, "tell me that isn't the best thing you've ever had." Claude, one of the workers, took a sip straight from the bottle. He paused, then smiled, wide and genuine. He laughed and passed it to his friend with a loud "hoo." Others gathered around, curious. Everyone wanted a taste. Meanwhile, Dad beamed with pride, going around to each of them. "My son made this," he laughed. "My son did." There were pats on my back. Someone ruffled my hair. They lifted me up and cheered, passing the bottle around until it was emptied, sip by sip. "Best thing I've ever tasted," someone said. "It's so soft." "How can it be so soft?" "It melts me." "I love it." After that, things were wonderful, but complicated. Dad really wanted the recipe. He dreamed of putting it into production. But I couldn't tell him. He wouldn't have understood, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. I hated lying, but the truth would have horrified him. He wasn't angry. Just disappointed. Maurice, on the other hand, had his own ideas. One afternoon, as I finished cleaning Milou's jar, I caught Maurice watching me. I thought I'd been clever, hiding the bottles in my school bag, but he must have heard them clinking. He hadn't spotted Milou yet, but it was just a matter of time. "You hide them up here?" he asked with a smirk. "What are you using? Mushrooms? Roots?" He kicked at the leaves around us. I stayed frozen, like facing a wild animal. He picked up a rock and looked at me. I didn't meet his gaze, and that must have been the wrong move. He threw the rock. I ducked, it missed me and hit the side of Milou's jar. It didn't break, but it made a sharp noise. Maurice pushed past me. "No!" I shouted. "Please, don't!" But that only made him more determined. He tore away the moss, found the lid, and twisted it open. I yanked a bottle from my backpack and held it like a club. "Stop it. Or else." He paused, then dropped the lid and turned to me. Older, stronger, healthier. I had dared to threaten him. He tackled me to the ground. It wasn't a fight, it was pure malice. He enjoyed showing how powerless I was. Lying in the mud, I turned my head and saw Milou's jar. 2 dark, unblinking eyes stared back. His long, trout-like face pressed against the glass. Milou began to shiver. Maurice rolled off me, convulsing. His eyes rolled back. His body twitched uncontrollably, and frothy bubbles formed at his mouth, bubbles that smelled faintly of Milou's water. Relief turned to terror. I rolled him over and tried to help, but he kept coughing up white foam. His eyes had turned an unnatural, deep black, just like Milou's. "It's okay," I said to Milou, ignoring the sting of my busted lip. "It's okay." Milou stopped shivering, resting his head gently against the glass. Then Maurice spoke. "Are you alright, friend?" It was his mouth, but not his voice. A deep, croaking rumble echoed from his chest. I saw the skin of his throat tremble, as if something inside wanted to break through. "Are you doing that?" I whispered. "He will not hurt you," Maurice said. "I will make sure." Maurice wasn't moving otherwise. I couldn't tell if he was conscious, or something else entirely. "How do you do that?" I asked. "I go swim," he answered. "I can swim very far." No more words were needed. Milou dropped back into his jar. As he did, Maurice's eyes faded back to their usual pale gray. He doubled over, clutching his stomach, throwing up violently. He had no idea what had happened. But he knew he had lost. I felt unstoppable. Maurice wouldn't bother me again. I had a friend now, and he was stronger than anyone. So the next time Dad asked me to help with the wine, I agreed, but on my terms. Nobody touched the dilution tank. Only me. Dad agreed. It was mid-July when we set up the tank. It was about the size of a small swimming pool. No one was around when I dropped Milou in. "You can't look out," I said. "But you'll hear people all day. Is that okay?" He tapped his head against the metal siding. He was fine with it. And he had so much more room to grow. By then, he was already the size of my leg. I had a silly idea. I borrowed a beach ball from the shed and climbed into the tank with Milou. It was cold and dark, but I trusted him completely. He was my best friend. The water was fresh, so I wouldn't react to it. I blew up the ball, passed it to him, and he passed it back. Before I knew it, we were playing catch, laughing and splashing, my voice echoing against the hollow walls. Things progressed fast from there. Dad made a trial batch using Milou's water. He handed bottles to his workers and took a few to a sommelier in Marseilles. It was a hit. That first test run, called Ami de Milou, sold out almost immediately. This passion project was turning into a real business, and fast. I had to yell at workers not to mess with the dilution tank. Dad still officially left it to me, but I could tell he was getting impatient. I could feel control slipping through my fingers. After all, you can't build an industry on the shoulders of a child. One night, I saw Dad climb the ladder to check the tank. He wanted a sample for testing, even though he had promised me 100 times he wouldn't touch it. I felt betrayed, but I let him open it. The moment he did, his eyes glazed over. He stumbled down the ladder like he'd forgotten how to walk. He wasn't convulsing like Maurice had, he just looked rewritten. His new dark, empty eyes settled on me. He smiled. "Friend," he gargled. "Best friend." Over the next few weeks, I noticed more changes. I saw Claude, one of the workers, put down a crate and simply stare at the sky. I saw my sister's eyes go dark as she watched TV without blinking. I saw my brother sitting by the fridge, tasting jams and sauces with empty, eerie expressions. Milou was reaching out now, through anyone who had tasted his waters. I remember my dad coming home with dark eyes. Mom, too. They started kissing in the hallway, but not the way couples normally do. It was desperate, clumsy. Almost violent. They hurried upstairs and didn't come down for the rest of the night. We missed dinner. Most of the time, life stayed almost normal. But when it shifted, it was unmistakable. Then came my 10th birthday. I stepped downstairs into the dining room. Everyone was sitting in a circle. Mom. Dad. My brothers and sisters. All with dark, empty eyes and stretched, unnatural smiles. It looked less like a celebration, and more like a room full of wolves baring their teeth. "Happy birthday," they said in unison. I got the seat of honor. All eyes on me. There was a carrot cake on the table. Dad stood up, holding a kitchen knife. He shoved one of my sisters out of the way so hard she toppled from her chair, still smiling. He leaned over the table, smashing his hand down onto a plate like his joints didn't work right. It's a miracle the plate didn't shatter. Dad leaned in with the knife, putting his full weight behind it, and sliced off the tip of his index finger. He didn't even flinch. He didn't cut the cake properly either. He just hacked into it because that's what he'd seen in pictures. They don't move in newspaper clippings. With both hands, he grabbed the cake and shoved it across the table, dragging the tablecloth along. Every glass spilled. Plates rolled to the floor. Spoons clattered as my siblings toppled over like fallen chess pieces, smiling the whole way down. "Happy birthday, friend," Dad gargled. "Best friend." "Thank you, Milou," I stammered. "Thank you. I love you." "I love you too, Milou." Dad slumped down on the floor, gazing up at me like a curious dog. Only one spoon remained on the table, mine. Everyone stared, waiting for me to act. I took a bite of the carrot cake. Their teeth began to chatter with delight. They were so pleased. So pleased. But outside that house, Milou's reach kept spreading. I saw people in town wandering with darkened eyes, bus drivers, fruit vendors, even shopkeepers. They would run their hands across flower petals, smell them deeply, lost in strange sensations. At the library, 10 people read 10 different books at once. At school, our music teacher slammed their hands clumsily across the piano. And in the news, fishermen disappearing for days, returning with mysterious barrels. Barrels that eventually made their way to our tank. Milou was growing stronger, and he only trusted me. One night, I climbed the ladder to the tank again. Holding my breath against the burning fumes, I opened it. Milou had grown massive, at least 12 feet long. He lay coiled at the bottom like a great black spiral. All around him floated tiny creatures, no bigger than a fingernail. His kin, brought back from the sea. Milou uncoiled, rising from the water like a serpent. His eyes were bigger than my fists. His fangs, translucent like glass. He leaned in, pressing his cold mouth against my forehead, a gesture that burned my skin. "You're hurting me," I whispered. He leaned back, understanding. He slowly coiled himself back into the depths of the tank, apologetically. And I climbed down. But something had changed. He wasn't mine anymore. I was his. It all came to a breaking point in late September. One night, I woke to cheers and the sound of running feet. I looked outside and saw torches lighting up the vineyard. The tractor roared to life, dragging the tank out into the open with heavy chains, crushing the grapevines as it went. I threw on my shoes and raced downstairs. My siblings were already outside, dancing and flailing, no longer pretending to be human. Their skin smelled faintly of Milou. One of my sisters knelt on the ground, staring blankly at the full moon. Claude was playing with fire, running his blackened hand through the flames without flinching. But where were Mom and Dad? Then I saw them. Emerging from the storeroom, carrying something between them. A struggling man, a stranger. "Let me go," he yelled, panic rising in his voice. "Who are you people?" Everyone threw things at him, grapes, tools, gloves. He stumbled closer, bleeding from a gash on his forehead. They had hurt him. "What are you doing?" he begged. "What is this?" No one answered. They just dragged him up the side of the tank. The moment he looked inside, he started screaming. He tried to run, to fight, to beg, but his body wouldn't listen. The crowd held him tight. I tried to protest, but my voice was too weak. They didn't hear me. Or maybe they didn't care. They threw him into the water. His screams twisted from fear to agony, his voice whipping around like it was being pulled apart. They celebrated, cheering, gargling, as he cried out. A small hand tugged on my finger. My youngest sister. Her dark, empty eyes stared up at me. "We want to try," she said. "To taste. To see. You're hurting him." I cried. "Please, you have to stop." "I'm just hurting him," she said sweetly. "Not you. Never you." "No." I shouted. "This hurts me too." She paused. The writhing in the tank stilled for just a moment. She held my hand, thinking. Then a fake smile stretched across her face. "I have a solution, friend. Best friend." She hugged me. Others joined in, Mom, Dad, Maurice. They pulled me to the ground, surrounding me in a suffocating embrace. "I love you," they whispered. "I love you." And all the while, behind them, the screaming turned into the snapping of bones and the tearing of flesh. I lay there all night, listening to it. The next morning, a bag was waiting by the front door. A stranger in sunglasses stood beside a white car. Dad took my hand. "If it hurts," he said, "you can't look. I'll take care of you." "Wait," I said. "What are you doing?" "Taking care," he repeated. They put me in the car. They shoved Maurice in too. He glanced at me with those empty, darkened eyes. "I don't like this one," he muttered. "He goes too." They sent us away. I stayed with strangers in Marseilles for a while. Weeks, maybe. Maurice eventually returned to normal, but we couldn't make sense of any of it. We were just kids. We had food, toys, money. We could play any game. Go anywhere. See anything. And I wish I could say we fought back. That we were clever. That we beat the creature from the woods. But we didn't. And we weren't. That was a long time ago. Ami de Milou has a different name now. I've tried posting about it, the posts get deleted. I'm almost 22 years old. I've never worked a day in my life. I have a nice car, a big apartment. People think I come from trust fund money. When I say the company name, they gasp. You've probably heard of it too. It doesn't matter. No one would believe me anyway. Letters disappear. Calls get cut off. They hide their dark eyes behind sunglasses, but I can still tell. They move differently. I don't know exactly when Maurice and I gave up. Maybe it was when we realized we could eat ice cream for dinner. Maybe it was when Maurice got a dog. Or maybe it was my first birthday away from my family, when a man with dark eyes handed me a card. There were two boys playing with a beach ball on it. "I love you," it read. They run other companies now. I recognize their logos, on fishing boats, trash collectors. Lately, I've smelled something familiar coming from the shower water too. Maybe they run the water plants now. I've gone back a few times. But I never get closer than the hill, overlooking what used to be the vineyard. Now it's surrounded by fences and barbed wire. Mostly around the new artificial lake. Still, in a way, I'm lucky. Wherever I go, someone watches. Someone listens. And if I ever feel lonely, I just walk into a crowd. I love you, Milou. That's all I have to say. And somewhere, someone always whispers it back. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel and keeps me motivated to make more horror every day. Thank you.